Now, I got, in my closing minutes, I want to talk about what will help Moses get out of this mess God got him into. I have 3 or 4 things I want to share with you. He's in a mess. Do you see that? How's he going to get out of this? What's going to help him? Even the thought process to get out of this mess. Number 1, he needs to be reminded who is asking him to do this. That's a good place to go. Hey, excuse me, what are you doing here? We've come here to lead all the children of Israel out of here and take them back to the land of the Hittites, Amorites, Jebusites, electric lights, all those other people. Oh, yeah? Who asked you to do that? It's important to know that. Who was that who asked him to do it? Some guy in the desert? No. He needs to be reminded. Exodus chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. When God came to him, he said this, don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. You're not talking to an ordinary man here. Take off your sandals, for you're standing on holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. That's who I am. When Moses heard this, wow, that's who you are. He covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. Exodus chapter 4, the Lord asked Moses, who makes a person's mouth? This is a challenging verse. Who decides whether people speak or don't speak, hear or don't hear, or see who don't see? Who made those decisions? I do. That's how powerful I am. See, you forgot who's on your side. And that God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who controls your next breath, who speaks the world into existence, that's who's asking you to go there. And you forgot. You forgot when you responded to that call, who called you? He did. You forgot who's on your side. Hey, excuse me, the one who called you, he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, those ones who lived long ago. There's nothing he can't do. He's on your side, and you're afraid of Pharaoh. Let me remind you something. He's not afraid of Pharaoh. He could squash him under his thumb. That's who called you. This won't be easy, but fix your hand in his, he says, and let's go for it. Second thing I want to remind you of is Moses needs to be reminded that who was asking him, doesn't miss anything. Let me say that again. We need to be reminded of that. The one who was asking him, who called him, that one, let me remind you, he doesn't miss anything. He doesn't go, whoops. How'd that happen? I didn't see that one coming. No, he didn't. God never used that phrase. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Woo. Look what the president did. Woo. Whoa, I'm shocked by that. No, I didn't do that. You see, you thought, and I think this frequently when I get into a mess, that he never notices. Yes, he does. See, you thought he didn't care. Yes, he does. I wanted to remind you that this morning. You pour your heart out to him. It'll do you good. But I want you to know something. What you see that's bothering you, that makes you say, I'm really sorry I responded to this call onto my life, or I'm sorry that I felt God led me to be conscious of this particular situation. I'm really disappointed that I even went to all the trouble to create all this stuff. Guess what? He sees the same thing. Moses says, don't you care? Yes, he does. Why don't you send somebody? You've done nothing about this. I don't think you care. The disciples on the Sea of Galilee, when the storm came up, said to Jesus, don't you care we're drowning here? It might be some of you in the room, that's how you feel this morning. If you really wanted me to be a testimony of wheels falling off a wagon, let me tell you my story. It's in response to something I felt called to do. The wheels are falling off of my wagon because I don't know if it was a call in my life, but I saw something that should be done, and I jumped in. Guess what? It's the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. Let me tell you about some things I've created in my life. God allowed me to bring this child into the world, to marry that lady, to marry that man, to create this company. We created this. If I could do it all over again, because those things have caused me heartache, and you know something? It doesn't seem like God cares. There's an old gospel hymn that goes like this: standing somewhere in the shadows, you'll find Jesus. You don't see him, he's there. He's the only one who cares and understands. Standing somewhere in the shadows, you'll find Jesus. You'll know him by the nail prints in his hand. You don't see him. You wonder where he is. You concluded he doesn't care, but he does. Look around, he's there. The third thing I want to remind you of is he needs to be reminded. Listen carefully to this, folks. This wasn't about him. Let me say that again. This wasn't about him. See, all of his excuses were about him. Who am I? How will this make me look if I do that? Because to be honest with you, I'm mostly concerned about me. Well, if I do this, what will other people think? What they think about me is what matters here. He forgot this wasn't about him. What if I get in front of Pharaoh and stutter? I'm going to look like an idiot. What will doing this do for the company? You see, my self-worth, my self-image is all tied to my position. And if I do this, how's that going to be affected? Because if I lose that, I'm going to tell you something, I'm nothing. People know me that way. He's the one who. She's the one who. Wow. Can I remind you of something? Listen to me now. It's not about you. It's not about you. My pride says, yes, it is. No, it's not. You're just an instrument. You're very fortunate that God wants to use you, but it's not about you. It's not about me. It's for his glory. God said, it says in Exodus chapter 7, verse 5, when I raise my powerful hand and I bring out the Israelites, the Egyptians will know I am God. That's why I'm doing this. I'm just using you, but it's not about you. Don't run in front of me. Don't seek the glory for yourself. It's not about you. I allowed you to do that. I called you to do it. I put your name on the side of the building, but let me tell you something. If you think it's about you, you're making a big mistake. You certainly stepped away from my call onto your life. And a lot of people receive what they call a call from God and then take it and run with it for themselves. You say, well, what if I do all the work and I take all the risks? I put my reputation on the line here. I should get something out of it, shouldn't I? No. Not if you want to be an instrument to help people and allow God to get to the glory. Is that okay? He needs to be reminded who this is all about. And it's all about the people. Don't forget that. It's all about the people. It's not about you, it's about the people. Exodus chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. Now go and call together all the elders of Israel. Tell them the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me. He told me, I have been watching closely. I see the Egyptians how they're treating you. I promise to rescue you from your oppression in Egypt. I will lead you to a land flowing with milk and honey. Exodus chapter 6, verses 5 through 8. You can be sure that I have heard the groans of the people of Israel. Exodus chapter 6, verse 6. Therefore, say to the people of Israel, I am in this position, whether it's a position of leadership or a leadership position. I am in this position not for me, for the ones I'm supposed to lead. That's why I'm doing this. It's not about you. I put you in that position for their sake. That's what Moses is being reminded of. He also needed to pay close attention to what God said. Because in the process of seeing this bush that was not being consumed and being a part of this magical moment, he missed some things that God said. I do that quite frequently. See, God told him what to expect. He was forewarned, but he didn't listen. This is what God said. Then you and the elders must go to the king of Egypt and tell him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So please let us take the 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. Then God said this to him. I don't think he heard this. Are you listening? He said this. I know the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand forces him. Isn't that interesting? I want you to go to the king of Egypt, the Pharaoh, and say, we're going to leave here. And then he didn't hear God say, by the way, he's not going to pay any attention to you. He told Ezekiel, I want you to go to the children of Israel. By the way, they're a stiff-hearted, rebellious group of people who will have deaf ears upon what you say. They'll not pay any attention to you, but go anyway. I don't think Moses heard that. See, James chapter 1 says, Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. We don't like verses like that. He's not saying a trouble might come. You can count on it. There will be troubles. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow, so let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. You know your faith is going to be tested. When troubles come your way, Peter said this, Dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you're going through as if something strange were happening to you. It's called life. Everything's not going to go perfectly. I don't think Moses heard that. He just said, hey, well, this is pretty good. This staff, this is good. I got Aaron who can speak on my behalf. I got my little hand in the cloak trick. That's a good one, too. This is going to be fine. When I throw my stick on the ground and it becomes a serpent, I mean, this guy's going to be impressed. He heard all that stuff. He was impressed by that. He didn't hear this. He won't let you go. He won't let you go. But I want you to go anyway and tell him you're taking the people out of here. There's something else he didn't hear. I close with this, Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. God knows what's in store for Moses. You see, a lot of you in the room have responded to God's call. A lot of you in the room have felt you've been led by God and consciously noticed something that needed to be done, fixed, raised up, started, and you jumped in. And you're not conscious of some of the challenges and difficulties that will come your way. There's over 200 quotes in that book down there. I love this one. Confidence is the feeling you have just before you understand the situation. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? You see, we jump in and we say, hey, we can do this. We can fix that. We can have children. How hard can that be? We can start a company. A lot of people do that. And you jump in, and then there's a struggle, and then there's a challenge. God said this to him in Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. Moses is going to need this, but I don't think he heard it. I love this. When Moses was saying, I can't do that. Who am I? I don't even know who. These people don't know me. I'm wanted there. I don't even know who you are. I can't talk. Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. 6 words. He missed this. Take it from here. In the midst of your struggles and challenges, in the midst of the mess you might find yourself in this morning, and you are just simply trying to do what God called you to do. He missed this. Certainly, I will be with you. That's what he told him. I don't think Moses heard it. He heard a lot of stuff. He evaluated. He thrashed it around in his mind. He finally came to a conclusion. Something tells me he didn't hear this. Hey, Moses, listen to me. Listen to me. You're going to need this. God didn't say this kind of stuff to him. Like he didn't say it to you. He just called you, hoping you would trust him. He threw this in. Don't forget this. I'll be with you. I'll be with you. I'll be there. whatever you're going through today, whatever mess you find yourself in, and in a room this size, there's people in here facing messes. He says this, don't forget, I'll be with you. I can remember our sons going to the doctor, and when they went to the doctor when they were small, they equated that with getting a needle. So if you said, we have to go see Dr., his name was D. Lorenzo, we called him Dr. D. We have to go see Dr. D. Sometimes they'd start crying. Why? Uh-oh, that sounds like a needle to me. Now, I don't like needles. I hate them probably more than they did, but I remember one time when our younger son, Brett, started crying because we were going to go see Dr. D. And what are you crying for? We haven't even gotten in the car. You got to give me a needle. I remember saying this to Brett. Hey, Brett, let me tell you something. I'm going too. I'll be there. He didn't know I was more afraid of needles than he was. But for some reason, that seemed to comfort him. Oh, Dad, you're going to be there? That's not going to be easy being there. Oh, a needle is even involved. There might be a little pain, but guess what? I'll be there. I'll be there. One of the quotes from Will Rogers is this: 20 years from now, you'll be happier about the things you tried rather than the things you didn't try. God's calling you into a leadership position. God's made you conscious of something you should be doing. There's a gang of people like the children of Israel. And if you could go there and watch them work and watch them be mistreated, they had a facial expression that said, we need somebody here to lead us. We need somebody here to help us. Is there anybody willing to do that? They didn't know it, not too far from where they were, there was an 80-year-old man wrestling with that. And finally, he said yes to God. And he arrived in that place. And even though in the midst of difficulties, they got out of there. And one day, took a long time, a lot of difficulties, Israel got back to the land God had given them. Let's pray together. If to use my terminology, in a mess this morning? Could you, if you were willing enough and we had time, would you say, you want to hear about a mess? Listen to this one. And all you were trying to do was what God called you to do. Have you forgotten who called you? Have you forgotten he never said it would be easy? Have you forgotten he said, when you're going through that mess, I'm going to be standing right next to you. I'm going to teach you a lot through this. Trust me. Trust me. Lord, I thank you for Moses, good illustration, good model, good example for us to follow. He was real human. He didn't want to do what you called him to do, but he did it nonetheless. It wasn't easy, but you were true to your word. You stood right next to him through thick and thin. Lord, for folks sitting in front of me this morning, for individuals I know, and a lot of us in the room know, individuals going through tough times, messes. Sometimes they're there because they responded in the affirmative to a call in their life. Encourage them, I pray, in your name. And all God's people said, amen.